Welcome everyone to another amazing episode with Secrets from the Saddle, all things cycling podcast with your host Sylvie Dow, and I am so excited to interview this family who has been cycling for the last 10 years all across the world. Now, I was introduced to them by a friend of mine in my cycling club, Nicolette. Thanks, Nicolette. They bumped into, I think you guys ran into each other cycling across Canada?
Yeah, kind of. We contacted them through Warm Shower. I don't know if you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so,
yeah, we were hoping to have them here talking to our club, but they're like, no, we're kind of, we're going that way instead of coming here. And of course, with the winter and everything. So I was like, well, maybe we should get them on a podcast and an interview so that we can really get, maybe we can have you back and do something like this for our club members. I think that would be exceptional. But before we get into hearing her story, Celine's story, I'm going to just go through a little bio, and then we're going to get into hearing all about their adventures. And like I said, I'm really excited about this as a mom, as a cyclist. I have lots of questions. So here goes her bio. Yeah. Here goes her bio.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so I'm just going to introduce, and then you can, I'm going to hand over the platform to you. And so here's their bio. For the last 10 years, they've been nomads on the roads of the world. They have cycled over 78,000 kilometers in 4 continents, from China to Alaska, from Syria to New Zealand. Their 2 daughters were born along the way. Nayla, yeah, learned to walk in front of the Angkor temples in Cambodia, and Phoebe made her first steps in a yurt in Mongolia. Oh my gosh. So who are they? This is Celine, her husband, Xavier, is an architect and photographer. Celine, who is with us here, is an anthropologist, mountain leader, and writer. So since 2010, they have been nomads on the roads of the world by cycle. So welcome, Celine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and to explain you a little bit of our life, our nomadic life. So maybe
well, what we could do is just go from the beginning. Like, what is your story around cycling first for you, and how did you meet up with your husband, and then how did you put together this plan 10 years ago?
Okay, so that's a long story.
I'm sure you can condense it.
We're not cyclists, actually. So
really?
We didn't have any bicycle before we left. So we are mountaineers. So I'm a mountain leader, and we used to do a lot of mountaineering back in Switzerland because we're from Switzerland. And so Xavier had this idea about cycling. Well, he had this idea of going through the land all the way to New Zealand, because he had already traveled in New Zealand in a few places, and he wanted to reach New Zealand all the way by land. And then that same summer, he met a cyclist that was doing it on a bicycle. And so he said, well, that's a great idea. I'm going to do it by bike. And then
that's a little faster than hiking.
Yeah, exactly. And then we met, 2 weeks later, we met. We didn't know each other. And then Xavier had this idea about, traveling the world. I think I fell in love, of a man that had, big ideas, big dreams, and wanted to realize them. I didn't quite know if we was going to realize them or not, but, and then, so we were a couple, and after a few days I said, well, can I come with you? Can I join you on this big adventure? And he thought for a bit, and he was, yeah, sure, great. So, and now he's happy because he always joke about the fact that when it's difficult, I choose to come along, and he didn't push me to come along. So it ended up like perfect. So then we decided, it took us 1 year to prepare everything to leave. So in 1 year, we didn't really choose anything. Like we wanted to enter the country as a white page. So we didn't choose anything, but we didn't read about the country. We didn't read about the culture. We wanted to really enter without any, prejudice, or without any thought, or without any pre-ideas of what it would be like. And so we took the map of the world, and Xavier said, I want to go there. And I said, I want to go there. And I want to go there. And so we draw a line with a pencil of all the places we wanted to go. And then we decided that it was just an idea, and that we will let the wind carry us along the way. And so that basically what happened, because we started in Switzerland, and 5 years later we reached New Zealand. And it took us 5 years, 50,000 kilometers.
5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. So we thought it would take us 3 years. The idea was to cycle within 3 years. And it actually took us 5. And our first daughter was born along the way. So Nayla was born along the way.
Okay.
So we really
Hold on, Céline.
Yeah.
Everybody who's listening, make sure that you get and watch this on the YouTube channel, because Céline has a bunch of pictures, okay? So if you're listening on the podcast, try and jump over to the YouTube video. Okay, sorry, I just had to say that because I forgot to say something. And okay, go ahead. This is awesome.
So, so that's what our way looked like. And actually we realized that our past revealed the symbol of infinity. So 2 loops, one around the sacred mountain of the Altai, that is in Siberia, and one around the high mystical peak of the Himalayas. And so, yeah, that's how the wind, took us along the world.
You know what? Oh no, I interviewed a guy from Italy, and it couldn't have been you guys, but he said that he did a lot of like sort of part of Europe and everything, and he came across this couple, and it was part of his interview, and he's like, she was so happy, but it could have been you because you would have had kids at the time. But I'm just like, what if you guys had crossed paths? That would have been so weird. But he had this would have been, you would have had your children by then. But he's just like, yeah, this woman, she was so happy. And I'm like, I could picture you being that person, like somebody coming across both of you and you being like just elated about your travels.
Yeah.
So continue.
So that's the first part of the journey. And after we decided to keep on going, so once we reached New Zealand, we wrote a book, and then so that was just a small stop so that we can think about what was the next adventure. Like, we like to have a project because it's like a big picture of where we want to go, not necessarily where we want to go, because New Zealand was a destination, and after a while it stopped being a destination. We realized after a year and a half on the road that we were more we just became nomads. And that, it wasn't a journey anymore, it was our life. And this is actually how we decided to have Nayla on the way, because we felt it was our life. We thought, well, if it's our life, and, we felt that we could have a child on the way. So we said, well, okay, why not? And then Nayla was pretty excited about the idea, so she came along straight away.
You're pretty excited. He's excited. You're like, but I have to carry the baby and cycle, and then I have to figure out where to.
So then we were in the Himalayas, and I got that I was pregnant. So I waited until I was at 5,500 meter elevation, basic Mount Everest, to tell Xavier that he was going to be a dad.
Did you trek? No, okay.
Yeah, we trek, but we didn't trek to Mount Everest. We just stopped at 5,500 meter elevation.
Oh, okay. Is that like Namche Bazaar? Because I've trekked up there.
It's further. It was at Kalapata.
Okay, yeah, Kalapatar. Well, yeah, okay. So that's basically where everybody goes around. You go up Kalapatar, you get like the 360, and then, oh my gosh, wow, that's exciting.
That was exciting. So that's the magic of our life. Like we travel around the world and we're all the time together and experiencing all the magic of the world. And speaking of magic, when we left, we decided two things. So I said about the preparation we did. It took us 1 year to prepare the things, but really the two things that we choose to do. The first thing was to get all the equipment ready to brave temperature from one extreme to the other in the less weight possible. And then the second was to kind of define the line, define what we expected out of the journey, to kind of have the same line, in a couple of what we wanted, what was our expectation, what was the journey going to be like. And by doing that, we decided that we would trust people. And so in all the country we've been, we never lock our bicycle. Where we've been, we just leave them in front of a stall, in front of a big, huge supermarket for an hour or two with all our belongings. And we leave them for an hour or two and come back. And we've never got anything stolen. And actually, when we were in Bangladesh, so Bangladesh it's considered to be one of the poorest countries in Asia. And if you've ever been to Bangladesh, it's like an anthill. There's so many people everywhere. And so Dhaka is the capital, and it's just wild. And we lost something on our bicycle, and someone took it and managed to follow us through the human obstacle to give it back to us. And so this is for us really the magic of our life. And I think by trusting people, we really, receive it back.
You have to trust people. Yeah. So, okay. Now, 6 years of breastfeeding. Okay. So I just saw that. Now, your birth of your daughter, where did you have her? Did you stop for like a couple months?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I cycled, so I was pregnant, and I cycled pregnant until 7 months. So I cycled and traveled until I was 7 months pregnant. I keep cycling until the last day, but I had a stop. So I had something else than a tent. And we gave birth in Malaysia because everything converted to a small island called Penang in Malaysia. And
I've been there.
Yeah, you've been there? Okay, yeah, great. It's beautiful. It's the island of food. It's the most delicious food in the world, I think.
Oh. Wow. So you had her there? Were you assisted? Did you go to the hospital? Do you have a...
So we really wanted a natural birth, and so we were looking in Asia, because we were already in Asia, in places where we can have a natural birth. And there's lots of places in Asia where midwives are not recognized, just because they are pushing women to go to hospital to have their baby. And so I really wanted to be accompanied by a midwife, but I was looking at all the option, and actually we found a doctor that was doing water births, and I decided to go to Malaysia to have a water birth. Like everything converted towards Malaysia, and I thought, well, I'm just going to listen to what's opening to me. So when we arrived, we had two options in Malaysia, one in Kuala Lumpur, one in Penang. And when we arrived in Kuala Lumpur, we said, no, that's not the place.
I agree. Yeah. That's a little too busy.
Yeah, and so we cycled another 500 kilometers. I was 7 months pregnant. It was 40 degrees. And then I reached, I remember being in a hotel the day before we got on Penang Island and thinking, well, yeah, we had a few bad, very hot days. So we decided to go in a place where it was aircon, so I couldn't just relax a little bit. And I remember looking at a picture on the wall, and there was a forest, and there was a path in the forest that was illuminated. And I thought, okay, I just need to trust it's going to be okay. And then I stepped on Penang Island, and we knew it was going to be there. like we just knew it. It was just the atmosphere of the energy of the island was just amazing. And that's where Nayla was born.
I remember just a little bit of that island. We didn't spend much time. I was traveling with a boyfriend at the time, and we had come back from Thailand. Yeah, Thailand, Malaysia, and we to Penang, and then to Singapore, and then over. That was a very quick little trip, but it was nice. It was a nice little island. So okay.
So then
So
I
you're
stayed. So then
huh?
I stayed for. So then we stayed for 5 months. When she was born, and then we decided to hit the road when she was 5 months old.
Because then she can sit up in the chariot. Gosh, the chariots, aren't they amazing?
She didn't sit up at that time. She was still too small,
Did
but
you lay
she
her
was
down?
laying in a hammock. She had a hammock, so she was laying in a hammock.
Okay, yes. I used to have one. I had a chariot as well for my 3 kids. Oh, yeah. And I remember as soon as they're so my first daughter, when she was born, I wanted to go out. So I strapped her sideways because I had a double sideways with all the straps, and we went for a ride. and then I would put her in the car seat and then strap her in, and we would go to like play groups and stuff like that. Cause I've been riding for a long time. But all right. So you left Penang. So that's 5 years in. So can I ask a couple questions about money? How do you keep going as nomads? Did you work and travel, or did you have savings, or how did you keep going?
So Xavier was he was a draftsman architect, and I'm an anthropologist and a mountain leader. And so when we left Switzerland, of course, we had a little bit of saving, but we actually we changed. So just before we left, we got contract with a magazine. So we wrote some article for a Swiss magazine, and so this and the fact that as we went along, we basically Xavier became a photographer, and I became. It was already his passion, but he became now a photographer, and I'm a writer. And that's how we can keep on going. So we wrote a book, we write for article, and we write article for magazines and newspaper. We also do some photo exhibition, and we do a lot of talks. We used to do a lot of talks. We like, live talks, and we can speak with everyone. But now we do some webinars. So we do some webinars on the web. And so we speak for companies, or we can speak for associations, for schools, for many different subjects and topics. We have quite a lot of topics that you can see that is either through countries, or we can explain some different countries, or sometimes even some topic that goes through like learning to work with your fears, or trusting life, or things like that. And basically that's one thing, but the other thing is that we really learn to live a life of simplicity, because every night we sleep in a tent. All our life is made on very simple choice, but at the same time, first, because we cannot carry anything, we can't carry a lot, so the choice is very simple with that.
Yeah, it's very.
And then we can't afford to go. We usually never go to a cafe. Usually when it's raining, we're wet, and then we get dry when the sun is here. So it's a very simple life, but at the same time, it really brings us in touch, with a very different relationship with nature, and a very different relationship with the people. So yeah, we really enjoy it. We're just living a very simple life. But of course, if you want to help us to inspire more people,
oh gosh,
get our book, or
yes. So yeah. And I will definitely be, while we're just talking about that, I'm going to put all their links, and you have to go through them. Like, there's some exceptionally amazing pictures. Like, wow. And some of their articles, they have a lot of them on their website. And yeah, there's a lot of links in here. Instagram, YouTube, they have videos there. So I'm going to put it all there, and you can go buy their book. You can book them for a webinar. Like this would be a great one, especially now, you know, with everybody being inside, because I think a lot of people are looking at bike touring, like for trips, you know, short trips, regional trips, you know, like within their province. Like I know a lot of people who've gotten on their bikes and have done like weekenders or gone for a week and just explored different areas. I think more and more people are going to that. Like I haven't even been thinking about it because my husband mentioned it and I was like, well, no, I don't know. And then the more I talk to people like yourself, and I'm like, why not? Why not? It scares me to death, but I won't lie. And
What are
you
you
know, I've
scared of?
traveled, pardon?
What are you scared of?
What am I scared of? You know, what am I scared of? And the thing is, then I shouldn't be scared of. I've traveled in Asia, Nepal, and India, just backpacking. So you know, I've lived in very simplistically, and I've, you know, I know how to get by on very little. It doesn't bother me. I think it's just maybe it's the miles, like the kilometers on the bike. I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't
Well,
know.
so it's very interesting. So there's different way of traveling on a bike.
Look at this.
Some people like to do it like a competition or challenge, and it can be a way to do it.
Yeah.
We don't do it that way
No,
because it's really, I mean,
I can't
yeah,
imagine
but
you
it's true.
can.
It's really a mean of transportation, and it's amazing because you get to really be in the nature and in the country. So you get to, you know, feel the things. We can like now, if we ever get in a car, it's just a nightmare because you don't feel the wind, you don't have the smell, you don't have the scent, you don't have the, you know, the heat or the cold. And so you really get immersed into the nature by traveling on a bike. And then also the bike is a fabulous way to meet the people. One time we were in Iran, and we arrived in a small village, and it looked very kind of austere, and we would never stop here if we were not by bike, but we needed water. So we stopped, and we had, you know, all the women were lining up in front of a bakery that was making some barberry bread. It smelled so good. And we decided to ask them, well, you know, ask a woman, where can we find water? And one woman showed us the well. And then the 10 minutes that we needed to pump the water was enough to, you know, create a connection. We have a reason to be there. Like we, you know, it break the invisible barrier, and then we invited to have a tea. And then it's the start of a whole new story. And so it's really an amazing way to get in contact with the population. And also because we're so self-sufficient with everything, we're so autonomous, that when we meet someone, we're not in a relation of need. We're just in a relation of we are there and you are there, and, you know, we can just share who we are. And so I think it's really great. And that's also how we ended up learning so many languages, just because we were speaking with the people. So for example, in Syria, people invited us all the time. Like one time they were saying, you can't sleep in a tent. You have to come in my house. You know, you stay with us, you sleep with us. Tomorrow morning, you eat breakfast, and then maybe you can leave. Sometimes we even have to stay. And then in Turkey, like we would drink tea all the time. Like sometimes we had to stop 10 times to drink tea. And so, yeah, but we learned to speak Turkish, and the most amazing thing is that we didn't know it, but the Empire Ottoman went all the way through Mongolia and some part of China and Russia. So then we traveled through this country. We were in Iran, where we could speak with the Azeris. Then in Central Asia, they mostly use Turkmen, Uzbek, Kazakh, Kyrgyz are all part of it's it's a kind of Turkish. So the Turkish that we learned was enough to go and speak with the people. So, and then even in some minorities in China, like the Uyghurs people. And so people loved it because we could speak their language. And so we really, it was just amazing. So we've experienced really, the people are really amazing.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's more easier with a family. Like when I traveled by myself in India, I was traveling with my boyfriend and we ended up splitting ways for about 2 weeks. And he went here and I went here. So I was by myself. And geez, you know, as a single woman in India back 25 years ago, I could have disappeared and never nobody would ever find me because I was just that naive. Like, and a lot at that time, and I'm sure it's changed now, like as a Western woman traveling by herself, I got approached a lot by men. Do you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have, but as a woman by herself, like, it's like, you know, they have this westernized view as to what we're like, right? We're easy, we're sexy, you know, like all those things. And I got approached and asked to, you know, marry them, take them back to Canada. It's okay, they have wives here. And it was just the most uncomfortable thing. And so I was like, you know, it's great to travel in packs of people.
Actually, I've traveled by myself a lot, and before this trip on backpacking, and I never had that feeling. And also when we travel, I don't think traveling with children is necessarily helping. Sometimes in some society it helps, and in other it doesn't. And so I think that for me, there's only two kinds of energy in the world. One is fear and one is love. And whatever you do, you cannot do it in, you have to choose. You can only do it in one on the other. They can't appear at the same time. Fear and love cannot appear at the same time. So whatever you think, whatever you do, whatever you feel, whatever you say, either take, you know, either its root either in one or the other energy. So I really choose consciously to nourish the thought, the whatever we say, whatever we feel in the love category. And it changes everything. And I really do believe that we could sleep in a tent everywhere we have been with our two daughters. And, you know, sleeping in a tent with no protection other than us, because we really feel that, you know, our security doesn't come from the outside, but from the inside. And it's because we feel secure in the inside that we can be secure on the outside. And I know this, everybody is, you know, it's not something that you don't hear about. It's something that people say, but saying it or living it, it's different. And that's where we had to do the difference. That we don't only think that we can trust people. We actually do trust people by leaving our bags everywhere we've been. We actually feel secure because we can sleep everywhere we've been. And so I think that, you know, every time we were in trouble, every time there was something really difficult, 99% of the time, it's because of misunderstanding. Let me explain. We were in Syria one time, sleeping in a tent, and two men came in our tent, opened the door, opened the zipper, and here we look at these two men, and one was having in his hand, he had an axe. And I thought, what? And I think in my eyes, he saw that I was afraid. And he kind of moved his axe a little bit away, so I couldn't see it anymore. And through the discussion, we understand that they were actually afraid. They were afraid of us. They didn't know who we were. So they didn't want to harm us. They just wanted to know who we were. And at the end of the discussion, which was very short, they said, I'm sorry, you can sleep, come back and have a tea with us in the morning. And so it's nearly all the time the same. You know, there's so many fears that actually we give we give life to so many fears just by thinking about them. And I think that's what we are to learn to do also traveling along the way, is that most of our fears are not fears that are actually here in the present. They are fears of things that could come, that could arrive. You know, they're not actually here. I'm not in danger now. But, you know, it's just thinking of all, you know, these men that could do things. And by doing that, you give them power. Instead of thinking, well, I'm secure and I'm right now. So it really, because we cannot imagine, we never know where we'll sleep. Even when we had a 5-month-old daughter, we never knew where we'd sleep. So we had no choice to have, we kind of have an expectation. We don't know what is around the next corner. So we have no choice but to trust life. And by trusting life, you learn to really, and by having no expectation, you really learn to live in the present moment. And when you live in the present moment, that's when you can really trust life. And when you trust life, then you see all these synchronicities that happen, all this invisible thread that guide you in one way or the other and guide you to a magical life. And that's what we experience every single day. Just the magic of life.
That's amazing. I think it's the security. You said it's the feeling of security. And I think it's exuding that also, you know, when you're traveling, because I can think of times when I've been really fearful for my life, but you have to fight that fear away, because that fear can, you know, how it could take over. It could take over you. And do you need that fear at that time when you need your wits about you, you know, because you have to get through whatever it is that's making you fearful, and to get out to the other side. And, you know, I can think of a small handful, like a small number of things where I've truly felt fear, like down to my core, that something was going to happen. And I've always said, like, you know, I don't have time for the drama that comes with it, because that's when things go bad. You know, like, and you put out that energy. So it's like putting it back. And I love that, because I love what you're saying, you know, just moving forward, and the positivity and the love will guide you to all the positive things down the road. Have you ever felt like a true fear, besides that one instance, in maybe it was a cycling related, now that both your children are on bikes? Have you ever felt a fear that ever happened?
Fear. Oh, there's many fears. Like this.
Oh, I know, but the one that like really made your chest, like heart jump out of your chest when you're like.
Yeah, well, we've been 20 meters from grizzly, if that could be a fear.
Well, that's a fear.
So there's fear, there's things that happen. I'm not saying that nothing happened, but you can either think about all the things that happen and that 99% won't happen, or just leave the present moment, and when there's something, then deal with it, right? Because when it's going to happen, even if you thought 20 million times before, it's not going to help you to deal with it. Okay, so what happened is that, of course, you need to know, okay, when you're meeting a grizzly, you need to know what to do. That you need to know. But you're not thinking about the fear, you're thinking about what you should do. Yeah. It's different. And so, yes, for me, but fear is very complicated. So for me, the grizzly was not the problem. What was the problem? It was the fear that was behind it. And my fear was not the grizzly. What the grizzly was actually symbolizing was my fear of not being able to protect my children. I was not afraid for me, I was afraid for my children. And so this is something that, because we're traveling the world and we have no place to hide, we have no house to go back to, we are in the world, we are out there and experimenting what there is, we had to learn to really recognize our fear. So when I had this fear of the grizzly, I had to really look into me to say, okay, what's really out there? Why does it make me feel so scared? And so I really looked of what it was. And then, because it was not when I met the grizzly, it was before I had the fear. And so I realized that it was the fear of really not being able to protect my children. And so I had to really work on this fear, not to go through it or push it or not to dismiss it, but to really accept it, to invite it in my life. You know, when you really invite or welcome a fear, then instead of being this huge dragon that is so big, or instead of being this little one that you push away, you know, like the Mushu in Mulan in Walt Disney, then it's a fear that is your size. It's like the dragon that is at your size. And then you can just take it by the hand and you can walk with your fear. And it doesn't mean that you won't be afraid. It just means that you won't, that you can still go forward. You can still move forward, accepting and welcoming your fear. And that just makes you human, you know, that we're all human, we all have fears. But no need, there's real fears, there are fears that are really there. There are fears that you can work on it. There's fears that are inside you. And then there are the fears that are, you know, the little cyclist that is in your head. The little cyclist that is in your head, you don't need that fear. You can just, you know, take it away. The fears that are in your heart, then it's more difficult. You really have to learn to walk with it and to welcome it. And somehow, when you learn to walk with it, then often it kind of moves away. Because then it becomes,
it moved away.
That happened to the bear. Yeah, it was. So meeting the bear was never the actual. When I met the bear, there's no time for fear. It's just,
yeah, exactly.
It's just action. It's just like you have to be here and you have to think right. So there's no time for the fear. Fear is not part of the equation. So we did the right thing. The bear just moved away. And we met a couple of bears pretty close. But then after a while, it felt that my fear that was really inside me and that was really moving me and that was really kind of uncomfortable was not as strong. Like I could sleep better. I wasn't just awake by every little noise, something like that.
That when you were in Alaska?
Alaska, we traveled through. So yeah, I didn't explain that part. So when we reached New Zealand, then we didn't stop there. We really had the code for the wild places of the earth. So we decided to cycle in a spiral around the great northern place, the great northern horizon. That's how we call it. So we went to the most northern island of Japan, Hokkaido. Then we cycled through Siberia, facing Lake Baikal, the sacred sea. Then we went through Mongolia and we cycled. So then Phoebe was born at that time. So she was born between Hokkaido and Siberia. And, and we cycled. She was just 1 year. She just turned 1 year when we cycled through the Gobi Desert. So it's one of the coldest deserts in the world. And it was just an amazing experience. The girl just loved it. It was very interesting cycling through Mongolia. So we cycled through Mongolia and it's quite intense cycling through Mongolia. You have to be very autonomous to be able to cycle through Mongolia. And once we arrived in Ulaanbaatar, we already realized everything we did, you know, cycling through Siberia and the first part of Mongolia. And then we were facing the Gobi Desert and we really had the intuition that we wanted to travel there. But we looked at the fact, we looked at the water point, the wind direction, the food point. We had an idea of where we had an old Russian map with old well that we could use in case we really needed water. So we had to look at all these things. And after that, as we always do, there's the information we need to get when we travel wide places to be sure of where we can get food and water and most of the basic information. And then we really feel what is inside us. We feel what is, you know, what we feel. Is it okay for us to do it or is it not okay? Do we feel that, you know, we feel like we can trust and we are fine with the decision, or we feel that there's a lot of fear and it's not okay for us? And so we always say that each of us has to do that. And if one of us say no, then we won't go. So it was a yes. So we decided to go in the Gobi Desert. And it was amazing because it's a place where you can imagine it's just wide expanses and there's just nothing to tell you the distance. So there's only the clouds in the sky that can tell you basically.
And the stars at night.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's very, we had really harsh winds. It can get very austere and very harsh. But at the same time, there's a magic. And we really had the feeling as more as we were diving in the desert, the more we had to get rid of all the layers of protection. It was as if we laid bare, we were getting bare as the desert, like, getting rid of everything. Until at one point, we felt we were one with the desert. It's like every fold of the land was part of us. And it was just an amazing experience. And for the girls, it's the same. They, we cycled through the Gobi, and I'm, still worried about how they were doing and everything. But Nayla was doing some swimming pool for the insect, without water, of course, but she was making some things in the sand for the insect. And then Phoebe, I remember, she just started walking. So she was walking in the desert. And then they have this huge spike there that looked like a star, but they're very big. And she would walk on them and then she would stop. And then when she stopped, we knew we had to go to her, and we look at her feet, and she probably had 5 or 6 in her feet. She never cried. She just walked, stopped, we take off the spike, and she'd keep walking. It was amazing. And when we left there, like, they got so much. They really were part of the desert. They touched in every desert. There's a magic, and it really comes out of the invisible. And Nayla and Phoebe really touched that magic, because when they left, Nayla kept asking, for months, when are we going back to the Gobi Desert? Even if there's nothing. It's just amazing. And maybe now that we are in a topic of the girls, we can speak a little bit about homeschooling or way schooling or tent schooling.
Yes, I was going to say that because, like, you're doing a lot, well, obviously, you're doing a lot of homeschooling. So do you stop, and how do you do your homeschooling? Do you travel and then stop and homeschool, or do you travel and stop in a place? Like, how do you do your travels? Or are you on the road all the time? You must stop.
Well, I don't know why we have this idea that children or adults only learn when they do, either when they go to school or they take any kind of teachings. Mm-hmm. We are learning all the time. Learning is part of everyday life. And I think that's actually what makes people alive, is the fact that we are learning. So we don't stop to learn. We're learning all the time. And we take all the opportunities that our life gives us to not to teach them, but to learn together. So let me explain. Well, they know geography because they've been there. They know history through the history of the country. They learn languages because they speak with the people. So Nayla is fluent in French and English. She can speak a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of Chinese, some words of Russian. So the concept, teaching a concept to a child is very difficult. Teaching a desert to a child is very difficult. But living in the desert gives you all the teaching you need. You know what a desert is. You know what is, taking care of the water when you live through a desert. They've been experiencing life in altitude, life in the desert, life in a jungle. They've been, they know religion because they were praying with the people. It's just not something that you can teach children. They saw people, they met people that had a faith and that were explaining about their faith, and then they understand what faith is about. They understand, different kind of social interaction of, it's just amazing. They learn that you can eat with a fork or with hand or with chopsticks. And so all this learning is basically it's their playground or their school is across the borders and is synced with the culture of the country we're passing along. And one thing we've seen is, for example, in the prairie, this summer we crossed the prairie and we met some antelopes. And when we met the antelopes, we didn't know there was antelopes in the prairies. No idea. And so,
like in Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Nayla and we were amazed. It was great. It was an amazing encounter. And then we get to the chance to learn about, the antelopes. And what is amazing is that we are not the teacher. We just are there, we're learning with them. So it's a different approach. And so we take all the chance to learn. But yes, we stop. When during the day, one part of the day, we would stop we don't stop, but for about an hour, either when we stop to eat lunch, either when we stop to have, at the end of the day in front of the tent, they have time to write a little bit and to read and maybe to do some mathematics, even if we do a lot of mathematics through the markets, for example.
Right. Oh, yes, of course. That's a great place to learn math when you're going out shopping in the markets. I totally agree. Now, I have a question. Do you take technology with you? Like when you sit there and you're like, okay, let's learn about the Gobi Desert. Like, do you have anything that you can pull up and do some research, or how do you, like I'm saying, like, do you have an iPad with you? Because you do writing, so you have to transcribe, or do you do it all written?
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting because the 3 first years we had nothing with us.
Right.
So, and we learned to do it without anything. Even we had no GPS, we just had paper maps, and it was great. It was amazing. We had to stop.
I think paper maps are awesome.
And most of the time, the information we get is actually from the people, and they're the most valuable information, because if you want to know what's going to be out there, it's better to ask local people than to ask any other information on the web. So we learn to really ask people. But then, of course, yes, we have a computer because we're working along the way. And it really depends where we are. In some places in the Gobi Desert, you have 4G reception on your mobile phone. In some place in Alaska and Canada, you don't have any reception for days or weeks. So it really depends where you are. Yeah, it's the opposite of what we can imagine sometimes.
In the middle of the desert, but not in Canada, which doesn't surprise me. But
so yeah, it really depends where we are. But we once we don't need to have the information straight away, and that's what we learn. We're living the present moment. But you see the antelope, it's still there, even if you had to wait a few days before they get the information. The excitement about it is still there. So then that it's what she will learn about the antelope, she will remember, because it was part of a story. Yes.
Yeah. No, I got to do a little homeschooling myself last year, as most families did, and I was very surprised that I could actually pull it off. But the thing is that what I found was really fun. And of course you have to embrace it. Like, somebody has to do the homeschooling. So, my husband was working, and my work is kind of flexible. So I carved out like 2 hours a day, and we kind of put together a schedule, and it was kind of fun because we got to kind of decide what we want to learn. And in doing so, I got to learn things too. And I think the kids got to learn way more than they did at school, because we advanced them. Like, I was able to advance them a little bit, and it was kind of nice. So I was like, things like that tell me that I'm capable of doing something like that. Because I was put in a position that I had to, and I did for 2 months. And I'm like, I could do this again. And I could do it probably pretty good.
I
And
actually think you can teach whatever you want.
I know.
Children are not learning whatever you teach. They're just learning whatever they want to learn. So
Yeah,
if
like
you just
I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, so we did
it's most important.
anatomy, we did biology, we had a craft day, so we decided what kind of craft we wanted to do. We got all the supplies, and they loved that one the best, of course. But and then we did math, and we made all sorts of games, you know, that I created just like, you know, on paper that we could play, and it was really fun. But and I look at that as like an opportunity that if we were to go and do something for a long extended period, that we could keep up with schooling and learning and teaching, you know, because that's kind of, that's a, you know, that's a concern. And I know that they don't have to be in school to learn lots of stuff, because we're here at home, we do a lot of prepping, dehydrating, you know, my husband's getting into hunting, not hunting, but trapping. So there's that whole, you know, concept of living off the land that we are getting into. And I said to my husband, I said, this is the time for you to start teaching us how to skin an animal, let's say, right? And things like that. But you know, to start passing on those little tips and tricks that you're learning to us. So if we were to ever, you know, have to go away and do something, then we can. And that's just something that we've within our own family for the last, you know, 5-6 years, that kind of preparing ourselves for whatever comes down, you know, that we can survive without having a, you know, like a house over our head and, you know, disposable stuff and things like that. Do you ever think about that? Like the, you know, your future as to where you want to finish up or finish your travels or settle down? Is there a plan like that?
No, because it's our life now. So it's
Ah,
not a
okay.
travel, it's our life. So there's no, it's not about, um, for us being nomad is not something that, it's a life choice. And
Mm-hmm.
as every life choice, we choose it every day. So we're conscious that we're choosing it now. And so if one time we want to stop, and if one time one of us is not in balance anymore and wants something else, then we can create another life.
Right.
That's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
See,
we don't,
that's the flexibility is nice.
yeah. Yeah, we don't have to do that. We don't have to wake
Right.
up and be like, oh, we're cycling, or no. We just, it's the idea is that we're responsible for our life choice, and that
Mm-hmm.
we choose now to be happy and to have the life that we want. And
Right.
as I said, to bring magic to our life now.
Have you ever been in a place where you said, you would say to yourself, you know, like, I could see myself coming back here and staying for a long period of time? Like, you've been to lots of places. Is there one place that sticks in your head where, like, you know, this is a really nice place and I would come back for a longer period?
There's places that we would love to go back. Of course, we haven't found the place, because maybe we would have stopped then. I don't know, but no, there's many places that we really loved, and that we know we'll go back to. We really liked Mongolia. We like the wild places. So Mongolia, we liked part of Central Asia. We really
Mhm.
liked Japan also, and the Yukon. So there's places that we
Oh,
really enjoy.
that's very
Yeah.
expansive. Like, that's Mongolia, Yukon, Japan. Where would you now, has there ever been talk, like, you know, in the future of settling down? Like, I know that this is kind of what you're doing now, but 10 years?
You know what? You know what? We're very good during this time now. Now it's COVID
Yeah,
time.
this time's
Everybody's
interesting.
freaking out, right?
Yes.
Especially because nothing can be, you can't have any expectation. The future is like this huge thing that nobody knows
Mhm.
about. Well, we live that for the last 10 years. And for us, living the present moment is not a problem anymore. We've learned to live in the unknown. And
Right.
so learning to live in the unknown means that we have no intention to ever plan what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Because if you plan what's going to happen in the next 10 years, how can you be, living, how can you follow what life, is bringing you? And
Right.
so, yes, we have kind of intention, but they are bigger. They are a bigger picture. They're not a smaller picture. They're not a small objective. They are a bigger picture. When we
Hmm.
decided to leave New Zealand, I said we made the decision of what we wanted. And
Right.
so we made the biggest decision of what we want out of our life. But we don't decide things like where we want to settle, because then
Right.
you're bringing your option down. Why would you do that?
I know, but sometimes you're like, like that place we went through, that would be somewhere that, I would like to settle down. Like I would like to go back to
Yeah.
and make it a place
So
of, yeah.
So yeah, yes, we have places that we really like to go back to,
Hmm.
but we don't. I don't know how to say that. It's not something we don't have to put it in a box. Thing. Okay, in 10 years, I want to be there and settle there. What
Right.
I'm saying is that, okay, it's a place that I like, and maybe we'll go back there. Maybe if things open, we might end up there and living there, but
Yeah.
maybe not. And that's okay.
So that's a good question. Like, because you're in Quebec right now.
Yes.
Now, you were in Quebec because how did you end over in Quebec? Is that when you went up to Alaska and you came back down this way?
Yeah, we cycled from Alaska all the way here.
Okay. So now you're stuck in Quebec. Where,
Kind of, it's a choice. It's a choice.
yeah, it sucks. But like,
When we arrived in Quebec, it was the beginning of the winter season, and it was getting
yeah.
pretty red everywhere for COVID. So we decided, because of that, we would stop for the winter. So we stopped.
Uh-huh.
We're now near Lake Saint Jean,
Yep.
and so we're staying here until the warmer, until the light of spring come back.
Yeah.
And so
So what's your plan moving forward? Like, are you going to go to Halifax and
so we
Newfoundland, or
have
are you?
Yeah, so as I said, so the idea from the last 5 years was to cycle around the Great Northern Horizon. So we still have that idea to cycle all the way. So hopefully to maybe Halifax, and then in Iceland, and then Northern Europe, Scandinavia.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
then now we don't know exactly where we will be able to cycle. So we just leave it open at the moment.
Mhm.
I think it's not the time to make any decision yet. So we'll wait until it's closer to when we have to leave to really decide where we will go and which route we'll take.
Right. Yeah. That's a lot of, so you wouldn't consider going down into the States? Like you're definitely going to go back up and
Um,
over?
yeah, who knows? Maybe things will change. But at the moment, yeah, the idea was to
Just
cycle
saying,
around the
maybe you
great.
get into the States faster. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, at the moment, the idea was mostly to move across and kind of finish our circle around the Great Northern Horizon.
Right.
But if that doesn't happen, then yes, we might change some things and move in different way.
Right. I know this is a lot of uncertainty for a lot of us. Um, okay. I think actually we covered all my questions in some way or form. Now,
Yeah.
so right now, what's like a typical day look like for you and the kids? are you doing lots of exploring around where you are? Or?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of playing on the frozen lake. So we're just in front of
Oh,
the, so we're exploring a lot on the frozen lake with skis and snowshoes, and so playing a lot outside. That's an important thing for us, to play
mhm.
outside. And then we are working a lot on, we're making actually a new photography book.
Oh,
So
very
we're working
cool.
on that. So this is taking us a lot of time, and
Uh-huh.
uh, and yeah, we taking time to do things that we cannot do when we are on the road. So we have an oven now, so we bake some bread, things
Nice.
like that. More, more difficult to do when we are on the road. So
Right.
yeah, we're just trying to find a balance between everything. School for Nayla and Phoebe, going
Mhm.
outside, doing a lot of work with everything that we have to do that is more difficult to do when we are on the road. So
It is a lot different, right? When you're stationed, like you're stationary, and you're like, okay, I've got 10 hours in the day. How am I going to split it up now? Because now I've got work and I've got
exactly.
homeschooling and
It's actually very funny because we're better when we know it than when we are sedentary. And actually, whenever, like, it's the second time we really stop. We stopped one winter in the Yukon, and we had the chance to spend the winter in the Yukon with the amazing Northern Lights. It was
oh yeah.
incredible, and we had the chance. So the both time, it's really hard to go from nomads to sedentary, and it's
Mhm.
actually take time because we used to be sedentary. So for us, it's very easy to go back to. So whenever we're in a house, Xavier is like, I'm doing my thing, and I'm like, I'm doing my thing, and then the girls are like, but wait, it's easy now. We have running water. We don't have to, filter the water in the river. We don't have to run, to find a place to sleep. So we can play all the time. What are you doing, guys? And so
You're like, no.
yeah, it takes some time to adjust, but we
Right.
really learn one thing. I think I like to joke about it, but I think a thing that made our something that made our couple very strong, and I think our family very strong, is that we're sleeping in the same tent. So at the
Hmm.
end of the day, Xavier's got the tent, I got the sleeping bag, you have the food, I have the the stove, and so it's like we can't escape. There's no escape to communication. It's
Right.
the tent is very small. You can't just
Yeah.
go in another room. So you have to
Yeah.
speak. And I think we really learn to feel what is inside us and to express
Mm.
our need. And I think it's a little bit our most important thing about living together. And by doing that, by being able to communicate, we can really settle a lot of things.
Oh yeah, you can settle a lot of things fast.
Yeah.
Like there's no having like, well, I'm upset with you and I'm just going to go over here and not talk to you about it for like a week. You're like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. We're going to talk about right now and we're going to take care
Yeah.
of it right now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's good, right? Sometimes it's a little bit explosive, but
Yeah.
at the same time, what is good is that you don't have to wait and make it bigger. Sometimes when you
Mhm.
wait, either you make it smaller or you make it bigger because you think by yourself.
Mhm.
And so I think that helped a lot. It was hard. It's getting easier, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's still hard. But yeah, we really communicate. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to know that you're still going through things like that, even in your situation, because I imagine it would be way more critical to have really good communication skills, especially when you're, like you're traveling together, you're cycling, somebody has to take care of this, put up tent, like just the routine, you
Yeah,
know.
when it's -30 in Mongolia and it's winter, you don't want to be on both, like you want to be on the same side, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. You don't want to be taking any time. Who's doing to do what? I'm just going to take that tent. You can get stuff and we'll get all right. Yeah, I love that. And I imagine you must give the girls tasks to do while like as part of the setup, tear down, like this is their responsibilities, and you know, whether it's taking out the sleeping bags or putting them back together or getting their stuff together and things like that.
Yeah. It's a balance we have to find. Also because they so Nayla is cycling quite a lot, so it's for her it's a lot, and so we want her to have some playtime too, so it's a balance between what happened during the day also. So there's nothing typical really nowadays. Everything is changing all the time, but according to what happens. So yeah.
So I know I could ask you questions all day long, but okay, one last one, because I'm going to ask about cycling. Now with the kids, you obviously had to, at the time, prepare them and their legs for longer cycling days. Like you can't just put on your daughter on a bike and say, hey, we're going to cycle for like 6 hours and that's it. We've got to get to this spot. And did you, I imagine, like, what's the longest day that you would ride together as a family?
So that's a tricky question. It's not so simple. So the thing is, so Phoebe now is cycling by herself. She's 3 years old. She's cycling by herself on cycling path, of course, not where there's traffic. Nayla is cycling by herself most of the time. But I have a tandem system behind me. It's called Follow Me. And so we can attach either Phoebe or Nyla's bike behind my bike. And so when they're tired, they can go on the Follow Me system. And then if Phoebe is tired, she can go on the trailer, on the 2-day trailer that is behind Sally. So Phoebe is like 3 choice, and Nayla is also 3 choice, but usually she doesn't go in the chariot anymore. Right. And so what we did is, from the beginning, we decided we have to be to really adjust ourselves to Nayla and Phoebe's rhythm, because they were so small when we left. The idea was that we were living a life. We're just not doing it for a few days or few weeks. And so we wanted them to feel good. So what we did is that we didn't necessarily cycle less kilometer in a day, which was, it's usually 50 to 60. That is a good average for us. That enable us to stop and, you know, meet people, go to see a temple or things like that. But that also enables us to stop. So we'd cycle maybe for an hour and a half, and then we stop for at least minimum 1 hour to 2 hours. And then we start again. And we do session like that. So in between, they can play, stop. If there's playground, we stop at playground so they can play with the children. So to really make it fun and kind of break it down. But of course, when we are in places, because where we need to cycle more because of food or water point, then it's more up to 70 kilometers a day average. So that's sometimes quite a lot. So Nayla can sometimes not cycle the full 70 kilometers, and then she sometimes go on the tandem system or things like that. But so for us, the idea is that she cycles what she wants, and then she can go on another, like on the system, so she doesn't have to be too tired. And the idea is that they enjoy it.
Right, of course. Yeah, we did a road trip across the United States over a month, and it was that, like, stop playground, stop water park for a day, you know, like is little like, okay, we're gonna drive another 8 hours, but then we're gonna spend the whole day at the water park, and we're gonna, and yeah, I get you. You definitely need to add those fun elements in, and camping, and it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of kilometers we did. And we like went down to the coast and across to Montana, then up to Calgary and back around. It was 11,000 kilometers driving.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of driving, but we saw a lot of cool things. And you know, like, but my son's like, I don't ever want to drive that much again. I'm like, I get it. You know, I think the thing is be like spending more time at certain places, you know, like maybe an extra day and a night, and, you know, playing with friends, like, you know, because we met people along the way all the time, and like they play with the kids that are in the campground next to us, and, you know, but, you know, chopping it up to shorter days probably would be a little bit more acceptable for them. But yeah, so this has been amazing. We've gone over an hour, but I could sit here and ask you questions like forever. But we might just have to have you back
Okay.
after, like, in about 6 months or a year to see where you are.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, because, you know, it would be so cool if you were, you know, outside and just sharing like the adventures of the last, you know, like getting out of Canada.
Yeah.
Trying to, like, there- but so with that, do you want to bring your daughter in?
Ah, yeah.
Still around? Or
Nayla?
she outside? Oh, it's okay.
I think she's
Oh, she cool.
venue. Qu'est-ce que tu veux dire?
Hi.
Want to say something? Oh, I don't know if she can speak.
Do you want to tell me what your most favorite place was that you liked?
Japan.
Japan? Really? What was it about Japan that you liked?
The sakura.
The sakura?
It's a flower, a tree.
It's a tree.
And these flower bloom on the tree.
It's the cherry tree in Japan, and it's very beautiful. And they actually made it very special in the culture, because there's a anami. It's a name that they use to actually contemplate the flowers, because for them the flowers is kind of how is it's like life. It symbolizes life, and the fact that you want to live your life to the fullest, and then to kind of die the way the sakura flower dies. So they, you know, once they reach the full beauty, they just fly away in the wind.
Wow. So did you experience like a whole I want to say like a presentation or a show around the tree, or is it just something that you learned when you were there about the tree?
Yeah, we learned with the people. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Nayla contemplate the flowers and to cycle under the petal of flowers.
Oh my gosh, and have them all fall on you? Did you keep one and press it in a book?
Yes.
Did you? Whoa. So that's your reminder of Japan? That beautiful flower?
Yeah, the maple trees from Japan also.
Okay. Wow. Cool. So are you liking it in Quebec where you are? Yeah? You liking skating and skiing and snowshoeing?
Yeah, she's just missing. What are you missing a little bit?
Some friends.
Some friends, huh? With the COVID, it's not so easy to make friends.
Oh.
So she's missing some.
Yeah. You and our kids too. It's a good, well, we're lucky they're back at school, but the thing is that you can't have play dates. They're lucky they get to see their friends in classes. So yeah, I hear you. I don't get to see my friends either. They're all online like this.
You can say hi.
But once the winter leaves, then we get to go, and we're gonna go bike riding together. And we were hoping to see you guys, but you're going to be moving on, coming back to Ottawa. I totally understand.
Yeah, well, yeah, who knows? We might be back, but I think we'll mostly go east. But who knows? We never know.
Well, you're more than welcome to stay at our place. We got lots of place to camp, and we're right beside the water. We're in Chelsea. You can go north, I think. You can probably go all the way to Maniwaki, Abitibi. No, it's Abitibi up there. Abitibi, like Georgian Bay, from where we are.
Perfect.
So,
that could be a good idea.
and there's a good little rail trail, not too far, but you can ride on. So we would love to have you if you decide to come back this way. So with that, oh my gosh, thank you so much for jumping in. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in, and for Céline for coming on and sharing this amazing, you know, just your amazing life. And I hope everybody make sure you subscribe to the podcast and you share this with your friends. Write a review, give us a 5-star rating, and of course, make sure that you go and check out all the links that I'm going to put in the description. That's linked to Céline's website, their book, and if you want to book her for a speaking engagement, she does those for corporate, for groups. They have quite a bit that you can check out. It's really, really worth it. So I'm going to put, and also the articles. A lot of those articles are the ones that you have written, right? For all those magazines. Yeah. All their articles. Yeah, there's quite a bit to explore on their website. It's quite impressive. So with that, do you have any last minute words or advice for anybody who's
yeah, sure. I think my biggest advice is that there's no limit to the life you can imagine, and that, you know, even as a family. And so really breathe in the power of the earth to fully live your life and really, you know, follow your heart. And so then you bring magic to your life and to the world.
I love that. I love that. And maybe I will do a bike tour in your honor.
Oh yeah, great. Let us know.
I got the next 10 years. We got the next 25 years to do something extraordinary. So with that, thank you so much again, Céline. It's been an honor. And make sure you get on the podcast and listen through, and go to the YouTube channel as well. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.